who are attending this webinar of the Board of Internal Audit and Management Accounting. Honorable Vice Chairman of this board and mentor of this board, CA Charanjot Singh Nandaji, Central Council member. Very esteemed speakers, CA P.K. Ranganathan and CA A.B. Vetrivelan. The moderator, CA Gyati Gupta. The secretary of the committee, who is seated to my left, CA Arti. Other members who are there supporting us technically from the studios or videos, I should say, Shyam, Arun, and Ayaz. A very warm good evening to each and every one of you. Esteemed members, your Board of Internal Audit is there before you with one more knowledge enhancing session, with one more session which is going to build you up, with one more session which is going to handhold you in the times to come. Technology is the buzzword, and without technology today, nothing seems to be running, nothing seems to be even walking also. Even while standing, we need technology. That is where the technology has led us. Esteemed friends, internal audit, which is very, very technical and which is one of the sunrise professions of our profession, is today in the forefront. We have two versatile speakers who are going to take us through today and lead us through the technology aspects. I welcome each and every one of you. I welcome the speakers and may now request our mentor, CA Charanjot Singh Nanda, to please give his brief opening remarks and then hand over the podium to CA Gyati Gupta, our very young moderator who is seated there. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Chairman. The Honorable Chairman, CA Rajendra Kumar P., who is the Chairman, Board of Internal Audit and Management Accounting, ICI, and Presiding Officer of BOD. Mr. P.K. Ranganathan and A.B. Vetrivelan, the both revered speakers of the day, Madam Gyati Gupta, the moderator, Arti ji, Shyam ji, Arun, Ayaz, and all who have come here to go home enlightened. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back yet with another exciting session by two of the revered speakers, Mr. P.K. Ranganathan speaking on internal audit and technology, imperatives and the path ahead. And second, Mr. A.B. Vetrivelan speaking on digitalization in internal audit. Now, digitization, technology and internal audit, both are in the same bag. We use technology for three reasons. Number one, technology puts an end to the era of sampling. The entire data is taken into account. Second, the timeliness is always maintained. Computers don't have eyes. They finish the time, work on time. And third and more important, the error is zero. When you use technology, the error, the inferences drawn are accurate. And in technology, coupled with internal audit, you are able to effectively give solutions which ultimately help the audit committee or to the board to whom you are reporting. I will not stand between you and the two speakers, but I would like to tell you that understanding and learning technology is a trait which ultimately puts you at a parlous where you start reigning as a supreme auditor. I am reminded of a couplet which says, "Ghar khairat mein milti kamyabi to har shakhs kamyab hota." Ghar khairat mein milti kamyabi to har shakhs kamyab hota. Fir qadar na hoti kisi hunar ki aur na hi koi lajawab hota. I have given the English version which says that if competence was got by charity, then there would have no mention of people who are outstanding, people who are great performers. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would just urge upon you to be technology savvy, understand technology and use them in your daily course, put them in your professional pursuits, and you will see the difference in terms of accuracy and in terms of the fees which you earn. So, thank you so much. I give the dais back to CA Gyati Gupta, who is from Meerut. Gyati, the dais is all yours now. You can take it forward. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your words of wisdom. Good evening, everyone. I am thankful to the Board of Internal Audit and Management Accounting, our respected Chairman, C. Rajendra Kumar Sir, the learned Chartered Accountant and Vice Chairman of the committee, C. Charanjot Singh Nanda Sir, for giving me this opportunity to moderate the session today. Today's session is centered around internal audit and technology and digitization in internal audit, which assumes a lot of significance in today's scenario. Internal audit involves evaluating and improving an organization's operations through independent and objective assurance and consulting activities. The role of digitization in internal audit is significant as it enables the auditors to leverage technology to enhance the efficiency, effectiveness, and the scope of their audits. It allows auditors to analyze large volumes of data quickly and accurately using specialized software tools. Digital tools and automation software streamline routine audit tasks such as data collection, testing, and reporting. We'll get to learn a lot of important and useful tips from our learned speakers today. With this, let me introduce to you all the first speaker, CAPK Ranganathan ji, who has over 4 decades of extensive experience, who stands as a seasoned financial professional specializing in finance, strategy, risk management, and cyber advisory services. His illustrious career has spanned leadership roles across diverse sectors, including automobile ancillary, manufacturing, IT, and cybersecurity, both in India and on global level. Notably, he has been recognized for his outstanding contributions, having been honored with the CFO Innovation of the Year Award and CFO Lifetime Achievement Award at the CFO Vision and Innovation Summit 2021 by Transformance Forums Global. Further adding to his accolades, he received the Financial Leadership Award in 2012 from the Institute of Public Enterprises, Hyderabad, India. Under his astute leadership, Ashok Leland achieved prestigious awards such as the Best Firm of the Year in 2015 and 2014-15 for the enterprise risk management practices by CNBC TV18 and ICICI Lombard. He's a sought after speaker at industry forums, and he has shared insights on finance, governance, taxation, management, internal audit, and more at events hosted by ASSOCHAM, CII, NCCI, and MMA. Prior to joining the firm, he has worked as a CFO with Kai Crux System, CFO Hinduja Foundries, Chief Audit and Risk Executive with Ashok Leland. He holds a degree in Chartered Accountancy, Cost and Management Accountancy, as well as certifications in Operations and Management Audit, IFRS, and Lean Sigma practice. He's based out of Bangalore and serves the entire Indian market. Ranganathan sir, we are very much eager to listen to you, sharing your knowledge and wisdom. You are wholeheartedly welcome. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Can I share my screen? I hope it is
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Okay. Thank you very much, and good evening to all of you, and more particularly to my guru and mentor, Mr. Sri Nandaji, and my good friend, Mr. Rajendra Kumar, and people in the dais of this alma mater, our CA Institute, and my colleague on the dais, Mr. Vetriveran. It's a pleasure to be back here in the forum of internal audit seminars conducted by the Board of Internal Audit. And twice earlier, I have given my part of the presentation on cybersecurity once in February 2021 and earlier in 2019 as a part of, again, internal audit stamp board initiatives on different dimensions of the internal audit profession. This is the third time I am having given the opportunity to share my thoughts with you on technology. As I would say that the major part of today's discussion revolves around what exactly we are going to do with or without technology. When I say we means here the internal auditors, what internal auditors are going to do with or without technology. I don't know how many of you would have seen yesterday's semi-final match between India and South Africa at the Billamore Park grounds at Benoni in South Africa. It was one of the most thrilling matches which I have ever seen. And India edged past South Africa to come to the final stage of the under-19 World Cup final. This is the 7th time consecutively India is making the final grade in the under-19 World Cup cricket, and the 9th time India is coming into finals. And behold, India has won the World Cup Junior World Cup finals 5 times so far. And if it wins today, on Sunday, it will be the sixth occasion. But be that as it may, the more important part of the thing which I wanted to say yesterday was, there's a concept called decision review system in cricket, which has been introduced of late, maybe about 5 or 6 years back, or 5 years back to be more precise, where the umpire's decision is being subjected to review through technology, through the implementation and onboard of technology support, to go through the process of how the batsman has hit the ball, or how the bowler has bowled the ball, and how exactly whether the wicket was truly an out chance or something otherwise. Yesterday, in the finals, when India was batting, the two elite junior batsmen, Uday and Uday Saharan, and another guy by name, I forgot his name. The two guys were batting. There were 3 occasions when the umpire's decisions was questioned by the Indian team itself on the batter's attempt to hit the ball, or batter's attempt to give the ball to the fielder, and fielder not correctly lobbing up the catch. On all these 3 occasions, technology very precisely provided the answer whether the batter was out or not. And behold, in all these 3 occasions, the Indian batsmen were cleared not out and continued their onslaught against South Africa to lead India into the finals. This is a very simple occasion where technology has come to the review mechanism in the cricketing world. This is nothing but technology providing the review support for the people who are all watching cricket, and for the people who are playing cricket, and for the people who are managing and administering cricket game. Similar is the case when internal audit is being asked to adopt the technology from a standpoint of where they were mostly on manual and semi-manual processes, and now with many technologies coming up in the last 1 decade or so, internal audit cannot be far behind in terms of adopting technology and making themselves visible on the screen, or visible in the organization's hierarchical map, so that they need to prove that they are quite adept in adopting to the technology and adapting to the technology, as well as executing the technology for the benefit of the management, as well as for the benefit of the internal auditor. This is precisely today the dilemma of the internal auditors, whether, how and why they should adopt technology, and 2, when and where they should get into the technology part of execution, and 3, very importantly, what for and why they should get into technology. So these 3 are going to be the hallmark of today's presentation from my end. And just to put a recap, I have moved away from Psychorex, my earlier entity, into Sharp and Stellar Partners LLP recently, about 2.5 months back, as a partner. Sharp and Stellar is a consulting firm. So this is going to be my short agenda in terms of what we are going to see from my presentation, expectations from the internal auditor, how do we use specialists in audit, how do we leverage technology and support automation in the organization's internal audit process and execution, how do we expand and sharpen the internal audit skill in technology, how do we closely integrate and collaborate with the management in the arena of technology support, and lastly, what are the real toolkits for the success of the internal auditor and for the future of internal audit. What are the expectations? I will just quickly run through on the headlines part of it. Increase or enhancement in the expectations. Why there is an increase? There are three aspects. One is that organizations have vastly changed their execution process from manual, semi-manual. Most of the organization have migrated to digital in the sense that they are online in terms of technology. They are upgraded in terms of the contemporary technology for manufacturing, for execution, for financial process, for supply chain, for sales and marketing, and every other HR process and every other process. Today, the organization has launched into technology as a support, whereas internal auditor cannot be seen far behind in terms of being a manual auditor, and therefore to increase or enhance or meet the expectations of the organization, there is a very critical requirement for the internal auditor to meet the technology adaptation of contemporary technology that are used by the organization. Then, change in the approach for internal audit. I would put it this way: pre-COVID and post-COVID. Pre-COVID, the organizations were mostly in the form of on-the-field type of audit, where internal auditors would go into the field, go into the auditee's premise, and gear up for the audit. So that made them mostly manual or some sort of a machine-based or machine-supported internal audit, where they would work on the machine, approach the auditee for documentation or other support, and then again come back to the machine and work on the machine for the purpose of arriving at their conclusions and providing an audit report, which could be either advisory or which could be either regulatory or whatever it may be. But post-COVID, when there was a compulsion for every one of us, every one of the employees to work from home, internal audit was really at the loggerheads. That was very clearly the place when internal audit was at the crossroads as to how they could adopt the technology from sitting at home and auditing the process of the auditee or their organization, which is quite far away, which is quite far ahead. And this provided internal audit the inevitable compulsion of getting into the ocean of approaching the right technology for a remote audit and ensuring that they also sail in the same boat as what the organization would be sailing in their pursuit of work from home, and they also would be signing off in the same way in which the organization would be approaching their processes. And therefore, this change post-COVID as to work from home, adopting the contemporary technologies for a remote audit or a remote review, compelled the internal auditor to adopt manifest approach to technology installation at their premises, at their side, and also at the places of every internal auditor, so that they would be doing justice for the organization in terms of internal audit reviews. The third one was need for change of methodology. This came up because tools. Earlier, an organization, when it would be using, say, a milder ERP, like it could be Tally ERP, or it could be Sage ERP, or mini Intuit Books type of ERP. Whereas, given the scale at which every organization is expanding, the approach of organization towards adopting better ERP, better software tool is to ensure that they reach scale with the least investment, and tools like SAP or Oracle's provided them the finest edge in terms of change in methodology, change in the contemporary information technology processes. And this also has equivocally compelled the internal auditor to adapt to the knowledge of such contemporary ERP technology, information technology tools, and get into the process of auditing through an ERP. And then whatever maybe the other one called higher percentage of white collar and smarter staff. This is primarily due to the process that the whoever has spent decades and donkey years in the organization might be familiar with each and every process, whereas those in the internal audit division would have come just about a few years back may not be exactly knowing every gamut of the company's operations, and therefore internal audit always had the disadvantage of the bird's eye view of the organization's processes and activities, and therefore there was a call for them to recalibrate their approach and make them current in terms of what the organization would require of them. And then continuous monitoring and control monitoring. With the advent of the new Companies Act, IFC, shortly called as IFC, broadly called as Internal Financial Controls, which is an omnipotent and very powerful methodology in terms of control monitoring, as ushered in by the Indian corporate czars. Because earlier, whatever adopted by the West in terms of SOX was only internal control over financial reporting, whereas India very straightly adopted internal financial controls, which en masse controlled or rather comprised of both ICFR, or which is called as ECOFAR, as well as contemporary internal control requirements, which are called financial controls, and governance, ethics, etc., etc. Therefore, the three baskets of governance, risk, and control got merged into the new terminology called IFC, as propitiated by the Indian government through our MCA, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, through the new company law, and therefore continuous control monitoring became very relevant and very important also for the organizations. And rightly, internal auditors are the more fitting persons in terms of ensuring CCM as a process, CCM as a method of providing organization the right support of whether regulatory aspects, compliance aspects, and other legal aspects, and even in the case of any other organizational policy coverage or policy adoption are being done or not, were effectively done through the CCM process. And therefore, that became a critical expectation from internal audit. Fraud. We all know that fraud, right from the days of Arthasastra, when Kautilya wrote his great book Arthasastra, he devoted a very important and big chapter on fraud in the government. So you can imagine, even about 3,000 years ago, fraud was not non-existent in the country. Fraud was always existing in the country. And because of that, Arthasastra contained a chapter on fraud, and Kautilya wrote very exhaustively on what is the government's role and the government auditor's role in ensuring and preventing fraud. That became a very important expectation from internal auditors in the contemporary corporate world. Then I have discussed with you about COVID and remote working. And then we have the client or company's faster growth, that also I have touched through the organizational expansion, participating in the new initiatives. This is very clearly the internal audit's outreach efforts in the form of new ERP coming up, new business being started, or expansion of the existing business, etc., where internal audit's participation becomes a must. Then using a specialist. Why? For the purpose of technology, internal audits would be better fit to use the expert, primarily because most of the organization approach internal audit with the help of chartered accountants or sometimes cost accountants also being recruited in the brigade of internal audit. But very few companies, I would say, like Ashok Leyland or the Tata Group or the Birla Group or even the Reliance and others, have long back recruited engineering and technical experts into the team of internal audit so that they would also get into the process of understanding the company's audit and uh, uh, um, related requirements, and therefore the mix-up of experts into the internal audit team was there as a part in certain amount of organizations which were bigger, who thought about the future and included such engineers and technology experts. Whereas there are many companies which do not have such technology experts, and therefore internal audit team will have to, which cannot specialize in everything, will have to outsource some of these expertise like IT audit, technical audit, quality control audit, HR audit, ESG audit. All these things are very specifically external to the domain and technicality of the internal auditors, and that becomes a very critical expectation from the organization, where they expect the internal auditors to match the corresponding technology that is supporting the other functions, namely information technology or process technology or quality technology, HR, etc., etc. And therefore, in order to match this technology expansion that is going on in the other domains, internal auditors will have to bring up themselves to such expectation through adopting and bringing up outside experts. It need not be experts exactly on a consulting basis. It could be people from their own organization or specifically certain selected consultants or experts from outside range. And this became the second major expectation. Then the third expectation, which the organization lodged on the internal auditors or logged on to the internal auditors, is that leverage the technology tools and techniques that are available today into internal audit and make internal audit a visible and credible organization where the board of the company could rely on the internal audit reports as a business partner, as a business advisor, as a person who will be able to guide the organization into the future and not necessarily pinpoint as a bean counting or as a fault finding extension counter. So this became very critically an important, I would even say most important part of the internal auditor's role. And coming onto this is many of the processes like data visualization, data analytics, using of bots, using of contemporary tools like artificial intelligence, machine learning, and RPA, robotic process automation, or even blockchain and such other similar contemporary contemporary technologies should be part of the arsenal of the internal audit team. If internal audit lags behind in leveraging these technology upgradations, technology developments that are happening, the concept of internal audit, or rather the usage and respect for internal audit, will get diminished over a period of time, and internal audit will become also ran type of a department or a function in the organization and lose its relevance. And therefore, technology is the only thing and the only thing that makes the difference between the existence and non-existence for the internal auditors to provide their credibility to the organization. And in a way, it also helps them to be part of the C-suite table, if not today, at a distant future. And therefore, leveraging technology becomes a major expectation by from the organization to the internal auditors. How would you bring up this leveraging technology expectation into the role of internal auditor? For this, we need to understand very clearly How does the chief audit executive or chief internal auditor or head of internal auditor should be able to take up his daily plate of diet meaning what exactly the organization is providing, and making the fundamental shift from the current or rather the existing processes into a truly and totally different strategic technology immersion role. For this, there are three major challenges which every CAE, Chief Internal Auditor, will have to face. One, he should be ready to shoulder broader responsibilities, meaning that by A, he should just not be a thinking hat or an executing hand. He should be more than a thinking hand and more than an executing hand. A thinking hat will keep on thinking, will keep on understanding what the organization requires and push that into paper and pen and ask these people to do it. An execution hand will keep on getting into the auditee's premises and keep on scrolling up the organization's documents, etc., to provide justification for the money earned by the internal auditors. But that is not the role. The role here is a broader responsibility. Responsibility stems from the fact that what the board requires of the internal auditor to do, it is just not what the internal auditor thinks and executes. It is what the board requires, what the organization requires, what the peer departments require of the internal auditor. That becomes the broader responsibility of the chief audit executive in the context of technology. Then becomes speed and agility. Speed and agility, less said the better, because if you want to be winning in a race, you should be running at 10x speed of everybody else. If you want to win against your competition, you should be running at 100x speed in order to ensure that you stand little feet, 2 or 3 feet away from where you were against the competition. Then only you can be ahead of the competition. Whereas in the organization, the internal auditor will have to be 1,000 times faster and agile to ensure that they are ahead of the rest of the organization in terms of getting into the processes of knowledge of the company, how the systematic organization's risk buildup has been ensured, and what exactly are the problems or the risk factors associated with a manufacturing process or with a HR process or with a supply chain process, etc., and work on such risk issues and make that risk issues as the plank or platform for your audit through technology. And then lastly, doing more with less. This is where largely the role of technology plays. With the technology, you will be able to do more with less people and in less time. Take, for example, we were in those days doing a sample audit of, say, 5% of the documents or 10% of the document. But today, with the help of artificial intelligence or robotic process automation, you could scan through 100% of all the documents and all the papers and all the data to ensure whether the process compliance, regulatory compliance, or any other type of organizational credibility can be run through in far, far less time than what was being done earlier. So technology has given us that edge. Internal auditors will need to take up that edge and make the visible performance of doing more with less in terms of people and more in terms of usage of technology. So how do we do that? There's an audit planning, there's a field work, there's a reporting, there's a follow-up. All of these are supported by the technology tool. What exactly? I have just going to bring across here very quickly a process in terms of how the technology enablement and technology adaptation as well as adaptation will need to be run through. First is multi-layer mapping. for a technology-enabled internal audit process. It comes through understanding an overall objective assessment and then annual or that is biannual or quarterly internal audit plan or review plan. And such a review plan should cover the organization's entire spectrum, including the technology support in each of these spectrum. And then how do you go about in terms of exception handling? How do you come in terms of an automated audit reporting? How do you ensure in terms of a technologically very well maintained working papers? It should not be in paper, real paper. The technology job that you have done should be reflected in a paperless maintenance of the documentation, audit documentation. That should be the hallmark of the technology support which we are going through with. And lastly, follow-up effort. There's an app that has come today for the internal auditor to just remind them even while before they go to sleep to understand whether their review reports have been either followed up or either been implemented, or if there is any deficiency, or if there is any type of control weakness reporting. All of this can be understood as a follow-up mechanism through an app. This app is available in SAP, is available in QuickBooks, is available in Oracle, and every other contemporary technology ERP implementation. The second part is how do we adopt a journey towards the technology-based audit process? How do you approach the non-routine operations? How are we going to be supported by technology-enabled documentation? It should be only through the system. It should be only through an automation process. It should not be through manual. And how are we going to do the predictive aspects of the company's business, the projective aspects of the company's performance, and the global visual aspects of how the company has done against the expectations from the board. So all of this is today possible in the internal audit's journey towards continuous auditing through technology support. And then what are the advantages of technology for internal auditors? I said data analytics and business intelligence, process mining, robotic process automation, and intelligent automation, cognitive technology. These are all some of the processes that internal audit can adopt and bring up into their system so that they gain both for themselves as well as for the organization. Incidentally, I will leave this presentation in a PDF form sometime later today to the organizers, so that the spectrum of the people who are watching this program will be able to benefit. Sorry for moving away from the topic. Then technology-enabled execution process. How do you execute? All through technology. Today, internal audit can perform everything without paper, without any type of an exhaustive paperwork, pre-audit paperwork. All are done through the system, through the technology, which you are adopting in your regular ERP process or in your regular organizational IT processes. Planning, scoping, fieldwork, reporting. How do you plan? How do you go into the audit objectives? How do you gain the business understanding of the organization? How do you draft the organization's technology-enabled processes? And how do you write a program of audit for such technology-enabled process? Then acquiring the data in the scoping process, analytics, identifying what exactly has gone wrong, what is good, what is bad, how it could have been made better, what contemporary better processes are available. So analytics and scoping comes in the process. Validate your findings. That also today is possible through the technology, through a comparison process, through a review process, through a validation process. All these things are possible. Then field work and reporting, all done through the technology. Okay, then comes a very important and a very contemporary development that has come up in the recent last 2 or 3 years, is called the artificial intelligence. We all speak about chatbot, what do you call as chatbots rather, and generative AI is an extended form of chatbot. It is something like how do we artificially propitiate the process of audit through a technology enabled process. Artificial intelligence has today enabled quite an amount of extensive ability to work for the betterment of internal audit. One facet of artificial intelligence is that the generative artificial intelligence. That is to say that more on the predictive and projective processes, this technology is proving to be a valid tool for internal auditors, offering a myriad of capabilities and ranges that enhance the auditor's efficiencies and effectiveness. How should it be done? Again, same process as we saw for other technology processes, namely planning, fieldwork, execution, and reporting. Under each, there is a step in terms of data analysis and pattern recognition in the planning process. How do we do it through the technology? What is the right type of technology that is required for risk assessment, etc., etc.? And these are all very specifically identified only in a Gen AI process, which could be very effectively employed in the internal audit. Right. I don't know what happened. Okay. How generative AI is revolutionizing internal audit? One is enter generative AI. Generative AI provides, rather it is a subset of AI, provides focus creation on new content and data. That is providing quite an amount of scenario-based planning, scenario-based audit approach, and capable of multitude of data analytics, fraud detection processes, fraud detection capabilities, and real-time auditing. As I said, predictive and projective analytics became a part of this Gen AI when we adopt Gen AI. And how does it impact the role of internal auditors? It shifts from the manual to the automated process, which is there in every other form of technology also. But very important is audit content is shifting from verbose to analytical. You need not say 8 pages of this happened, that happened, this happened, when happened, how happened. Not at all. You provide analytical data to the organization of what happened, what went wrong, when, etc. With the data, organization will be able to understand whether what you are saying is real or factual, real and factual. Rather. And therefore, Gen AI has that conversion from verbose to analytical, or rather enhancement from verbose to analytical. Role change, being counter to strategic advisor. I don't need to expand on this. It is very easy knowledge. Then tutorial knowledge versus continuous knowledge. Earlier, as a regular internal auditor, I will be just employing myself to know everything through the book and paper. Today, technology is affording you the process. Gen AI is giving you the process of understanding every other technology on a continuous basis. That is exactly the role of a Gen AI. Then enhance ethical and regulatory compliance. That is, how does the organization get into that, and how internal auditors can be the guardians or the gardeners, which term which I used in the meeting that happened at Chennai about a week back, gardener of governance. Internal auditor becomes gardener of governance through enhanced ethical and regulatory compliance through the Gen AI process. Lastly, how new is AI for every organization? It's just not a tool, but it is a potential force in the IAS armory for transformation. Reshapes the auditors into strategic advisors with data-driven insights. Very important. Creates a very real possibility of higher standards in corporate governance through the internal auditors. Then expand and sharpen auditor skills. NAA provides, as I said earlier also, the same thing. From tutorial knowledge to continuous learning. Then it enables the people to closely collaborate with the management and stakeholders in every. Very important, as I said in the bold words, ensure to keep technology as the Kantiba and continuous learning and upgrades as the Brahmastra. Very important. If the internal auditor has to be a winner, you should use technology as the Kantiba, which Arjun used in the Mahabharata war, and continuous learning and upgrades as the Brahmastra, which will help IA to win in any battleground. Just last part, future-proofing the internal audit, which becomes a new internal audit toolkit, digitalization and digital transformation, which my learned friend Mr. Vetrivelan is going to speak about in the next few minutes. I don't want to delve on that. Almost all of this is going to be touch-based by Mr. Vetrivelan, increasing poking into the cybersecurity role by internal auditor. That is one important toolkit which internal auditor can develop and has to develop. Then machine learning and robotic process automation is another toolkit which the internal auditor has got the potential to learn and develop into their toolkit and into their Brahmastra. Data analytics and data mining is another Brahmastra for the internal auditors. Then cyber risk assessment through technology. Today, the zero trust technology provides the internal auditor to perform continuous cyber risk assessment. The zero trust technology is not a Rig Veda or Yajurveda, and it can be learned by internal auditor in no time. I have learned it just as a part of Psychurex, and when I have learned it at the age of 64, you guys in the age of 30s and 40s can easily learn zero trust technology. Lastly, internal auditors' role in data governance. That is very important. With this, I stop. I hope, Jati, you have to confirm whether I have taken excess time. I'm sorry, whether I have lived up to the time or taken excess time. And I am remain here for any questions that will come from the audience. Thank you very much. I thank Sri Nandaji, Sri Rajendra Kumar, and every other person for the opportunity given.
Thank you, sir, for your valuable time. Let me just.
Shall I close the presentation?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Sir,
I think it's closed.
Yes, sir. It's closed. And let me check if the members have any queries. So we are receiving the comments, the comments for appreciation, but no queries so far.
I'm always available. My mail ID is with the institute. Or simply to state pkrnath1958@gmail.com. Please shoot your questions. I'm always available for any query settlement. Absolutely. At any time.
Thank you, Ranganathan sir, for such a comprehensive session, guiding us about leveraging technology, 3 fundamental challenges, multi-layer mapping for a technology-enabled internal audit, generative AI, etc. Thank you for your valuable time, and we are hopeful that the session was useful to the audience. Thank you, sir. Moving to the second leg of the session, let me now introduce the second speaker of today, Vetrivelan, who's a chartered accountant and certified Scrum Master. He's a director with risk advisory practice of Deloitte, India. He has 14 years of experience in internal audit, 3 lines of defense, digital internal audit, agile internal audit, contract compliance, and cost recovery, strategic cost reduction exercise, supplier rationalization review, etc. He has served mainly for banking and financial services, and he has spent significant time working outside India for various projects for various financial statement clients. Vetrivelan is a national trainer for Deloitte, conducted various programs, internal and external, on various topics. So, with these words, let me now welcome Trivelan sir.
Hey, thanks.
Over to you.
Thanks, Gayatri. Sham, can you flash that presentation? Yeah. So thanks to, I say, the Board of Internal Audit and the Management Accounting, Rajendra ji and Nanda ji, having me on this important topic of digitalization in internal audit. Also, thanks to the IIT for moderating this section. And thanks to Raghunath sir for sharing a lot of insights around technology and AI. Already set the stage for Gen AI. I think that's the most advanced kind of technology which is available for the internet modernization. Hope that was helpful. But anyway, I'll try to share my insights in terms of how digitalization in internal audit going to help us and where we can do digitalization, what kind of technologies. But next 45 minutes to 50 minutes, I'll try to be talk more about what's the possible pain points and where the technology is going to help us. But parking separately, there are a lot of technology I will comment later if it's some specific questions that are around. So if we more delve into the current topic, right, in terms of our current business ecosystem changes and the changes which is we see a lot of changes coming around transformation technologies and internal audit in terms of methodology. And internal audit has to need to catch up with the pace of the newer business model because there's a complexity of newer risks coming, and there's a business acumen has been changed, and there's a geopolitical backdrop is coming out, and you can hear about a lot of climate risk, and there's a lot of evolving emerging technology, which we already spoke about Gen AI, which gives a lot of changes in our world, the way we're going to execute. And these are the drivers we need to look in terms of how we're going to deliver the internal audit works to your clients or your business in-house teams, right? That's where it's going to helpful for them, so that we are stay relevant to them, and that we're going to be adding the value of the more value addition and the trusted business advisor. That's what they're expecting from us. And looking that, and this is where we have some context we want to set with you. And more important in terms of how we can digitalize the internal audit work, right? That's what I want to share insights and bring some efficiency and the greater assurance to your clients and the business teams. That's what. And with this context, I'm going to share some leading market practices for your awareness, also precursors about in terms of where we can leverage those in our execution work. That's what I would like to share more about it to give a more context on it. And next slide, Sham. So in terms of what we're going to cover is more of what is our recap of our internal journey and what are the expectations from the chief audit executives at era of audits, because that's most important. They playing an important role in terms of from the expectations of audit committees, from the business and CXOs and the promoters and the more investors and etc. Right? So they have the important roles which they get to know the expectations. And what's a new era of internal audit framework I like to share in terms of a collectively? That's gives some better perspective for everyone to understand what's the market leading practices on the new internal audit framework. Then also where we can leverage our technologies in internal audit lifecycle, which already others have picked up. But I'll share more deeper insights if I can able to help you to understand better. And also some of the leading practices and use cases, so that will help us where exactly this newer technology is helping us. So what kind of success story and what are the cautiousness we should do it. And last bit of tools overview and some small dashboards will help us to see the visualize in terms of how it looks like. So that's what we broadly going to cover. Sam, just move on. So it's always good to pause and reflect in terms of how our internal journey starts, because to benefit of someone new at the internal, someone is to see what are the changes happen, because that makes us to see what kind of advancements and changes has happened. So when you look at the journey where we started about 1941 in terms of our birth of internal audit, right? Basically, that's where we largely focus in terms of how the internal audit came into picture. And that's where your lot of internal issues, internal controls, frauds, transactional issues, everything being carved up, right? And that's made us for where their IA created their internal audit, and that establishment helps a lot of guiding notes and the frameworks and the standards, which was driving them entire globe in terms of how we should do an internal audit. that's a lot of learning curve has been there. And where if you picked up again in 1992, where the COSO integrated control framework was established or it's been rolled out, and largely they also talk about more of how internal control over financial reporting, because we largely the financial statement P&L balance sheets where we look, but the numbers perspective, but we do it. But in addition to that, how the checks and balances and the controls points are there, so that gives them the numbers is being represented correctly or not. That's where the COSO was entered a lot of guidance and framework also. And additionally, there is a lot of changes or the issues being triggered. For example, 2002, where the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, which has been enacted from the US largely because of the scandal which is created, and which in, again they talk about more of how we can strengthen that internal control over financial reporting, because that's the most important. That's where the lot of the market is driven, and how it's impacting the market is also we need to do there. Then followed by 2004, where you might have heard about IT internal audit, because that's where largely people started to focus on the process, more on the transactions, governance, and approvals outside the technology. But then there's an IT was playing a dominant role because of everything is got recorded or locked in your data, and that's where the largely how my automated controls, what kind of checks and balance, how my technologies help to translate my the financials, right? So that's where IT interlody came into picture in terms of how that my access control, configuration, confidentiality, privacy, everything has been focused towards that, so that there's enough focus given on the business side as well as the IT side. That's where there is a lot of focus happening in 2004 on IT internal audit. Then with that, there is a 2006 where you can see data analytics was came into picture, and that's largely talk about because larger set of data which is been available, and which we need to understand in terms of what are the patterns or the trends is available, because the bigger business ecosystem and the business model has been widened. There's a lot of globalization or multi-geography operations, and there are a lot of transactions, and the volume has been accumulated, and everything got recorded as a data. So there's a requirement of to understand the data analytics more in terms of what was the pattern of the transactions and the outlier scheme. And that's what a lot of focus has been come on the data analytics. Then again, if I have to move on, there is a 2009 where the cybersecurity or the cyber risk or integrated audits was getting prominence, because factoring, there's a lot of focus on within your own domain, and there's a lot of internet or external network or domain is started happening. So there's a potential external threat is coming around. What kind of data leakages, what kind of data breaches can happen, what kind of compromise can happen, who can make an attack or hacking can be done. So that's where there's a focus happen on 2009 on cyber related aspects. And then if you look again on basically on 2018, where you have agile internal audit was came into picture, and that's the year there's a complete shift has happened in terms of how we can look the methodology of internal audit, because there's a waterfall where we have to do a planning, field work, and reporting, and we typically take a longer time to issue the reports. That's a traditional or waterfall method of internal audit. But there is a change has happened, and then the methodology side, which is got the 2018 where Agile was came into picture in the market, and that's largely focusing on about how we can issue the report on faster with a greater assurance and the compressiveness. That's where this Agile was came into picture, and that's also the behind the scenes of why we the mechanism of software development where the agile mechanism was used is the same mechanisms, and the methodology has been used in the internal audit also. That's what they called as agile internal audit. That's a bigger topic. I don't want to get into too much. It takes longer time for the explain. And if you look afterwards, the 2021 onwards, you might have heard the word of digital internal audit. Digital internal audit, nothing about your combination of analyticals and cognitive technologies. With that, there's a completely using of your robotics process automation, NLG and NLP, which is your NLG is your natural language generation, using your structured data in terms of unstructured data, and similarly you have NLP where your unstructured data you converting into your structured data, and with AI ML. So that's where this 2021 onwards, a lot of people are investing, doing innovation in terms of how these are technology can be useful in our internal audit. And that's what there is a big shift in happened to the IE professional. Then they started making it relevant in the game where using this technology, how they can bring more efficiency, more value additions to the clients or the in-house business teams or the stakeholders. And similarly, what level of greater coverage then makes. That's where this digital interlody came into picture. And obviously 2023 and 2024 where we always hearing about Gen AI. That's what Ranganath sir also picked up. And Gen AI is again completely game changer because that comes with a lot of changes because Gen AI using a larger of LLM model, which is your large language modeling, which talks about they'll be generating new content. A classic example, your risk and control matrices will be generated from the reading lot of your SOPs and policies. That's where it's going to be the Gen AI role is going to play. That's where we start practicing the Gen AI and LLM models in a lot of our executing of the work also. And that's a big change is going to happen in the leading technologies which you use. This is a quick recap of our Interlody journey, and it's a lot of advancement and innovations happening around to make it more sharper and to give greater assurance to the board, committee, stakeholders, and shareholders as well. So with that, I'll just move on to next. Ram, just move on to next slide. Yeah. So we spoke about more in terms of a recap, but more important to understand what are the expectations of chief audit executives or head of audit. The based on the survey, it'll share some of a quick summary, but there is a lot of detailed report is available in terms of the outcome of the survey, which is conducted around almost 160 or 170 people of chief audit executives or head of audits globally. They come up with a specific. These are my expectations as an head of audit, and this is what my business or the audit committees or the promoters, investors, whomsoever they have their reporting lines, they've been expecting on this. One is very straightforward messaging is adopt agile methodology because right now the amount of time taken to issue a report from planning till execution till reporting and our typical methodology which we follow, it takes at least a minimum on average of 8 to 10 weeks, and that times take longer for the business or your clients to do a quicker fixtures. So that's where they're looking agile methodology in terms of can you get me the quicker the non-compliances or exceptions or objection much faster within a 1 week or 2 weeks of time, which has a mechanism in terms of how the agile is being used. Second is more in terms of your line of defense alignment, because largely there's a lines of defense you might have heard about, but I'll quickly touch upon what's the underlying principles. Your first line will be your business people or the transaction who's running the shop, and they'll be act as a first line of defense, and the second lines might be on a typically a risk management or operational risk team will be act as a second line. And third line of defense where we will play the role of an internal auditors. That's where so typically happen in the global organization, largely on the financial organization. Those practices is being followed across the sector going forward, where they're looking a clear level of alignment should have. So what level degree should be first line has to focus, second line has to focus, and third line has to have complete oversight on a first line and second line to give a complete better assurance to the executives or the board and etc. That's where the line of defense alignment is happening. And the third is more in terms of forward looking. So when we say forward looking, it's more about always we typically the interlot reports of what went wrong, what are the issues, what are the observations, etc. But what more interested is what can go right. That's what the forward looking. So in line with that forward looking approach or solutioning or recommendation is more important while you come with a problem statement. That's where your expectations evolving around it. And the fourth is on the best practices because always they're looking some outside view in terms of on your landscape of current processes or the controls in the organization. What are the best practices which have been adopted by my competition or the peers or the market leading practices, so that they can able to elevate their business models or the process to the next level. And most important, the fifth is on the digital solution, what we are talking about, because most of our chief audit executives are thinking about how we can bring a digital solution, the way we are going to execute the audit, so that there's a completely lot of transformation happening in the business side. That's what is happening. But within the world of internal audit, what are the digital solutions or digital transformations happen so that they're using all the leading digital assets or tools so that the execution of the work is much more greater, sharper, and a greater coverage. So that's digital solutions one of the key agendas there. Then actionable recommendations is the one of the expectations, because most of the recommendations looks like the outside of implementation, it's not practicable. So what kind of a practical recommendation can you give us with an option A, B, C, with the ROI kind of an scale, so that the business or the implementer can able to think that there's a relevant advices coming from the internal auditors. And the last one was before that is on the transformation projects, so that any transformations happening within your business world or your business or your clients, they looking an advisor as an internal auditor be from the day one, so that you design the process and the control and given us advice from the day one, rather than doing your internal audit exercise after implementation come with so many problem statements. So that's kind of an advisory role is expected from the internal audit. And organizational improvement also, that's one of the expectations. The way we do right now is whenever there's an audit, we go and meet that respective stakeholders and do a walkthrough, do a reviews and audit and come back with a report. Why it can't be a regular basis outside your audit plan? Go and meet regularly and give an advices as and when it's happening, so that we also give more closer to that what's happening rather than coming at the last juncture. And the last is on that after sales care is one of the things is expected. When we say after sales care, after the reports are issued, at least for the next 6 months or 8 months, we've been regularly touch with the respective function or the clients or those who are driving that entire issues of the report, implementation or remediation. What kind of advice or help we should do it, so that this need any sort of a course correction that can be done. So these are the some of the expectations which is been expected. This gives us some insight to us to think about how we want to change the way which has been operating. And the next is on that. I'm just move on to the next. So if put collectively what we spoke about, what are the leading market practices in terms of internal audit framework, which will help us is the important tagline is it should be a purpose driven and digitally powered. And that's we might heard about, because digitally power is the important expectations being common, and also does not compromise on your purpose driven. When we say purpose driven, what we're looking out, what is the purpose of this audit, what are the outcomes, and what are the objective to be achieved, and what's the impact or value to be generated, right? That's the where whenever the conversation happening on the capacity of internal auditors with your business or your clients, that is what they're expecting, so that the purpose and the remit is never been compromised, but that's the focus area. But if you look at the overall the framework right now with the market leading practices, which talks about more about the 4 A's, 4 A's, that is what common here, which is your assurance, which is your advice, and third A is more about in terms of what is happening on the anticipation rule and what is happening on the accelerator. So if give a bit of background on the 4 A's, is nothing about advice is our legacy business, where we always look into the processes, transactions, and give an advice to them. And next is most important aspect, which is been missing, which is what is expected is on the greatest risk. When we say greatest risk is more about there's any possibility of a brand destruction, and there's any possibility of regulatory impact is going to happen. In addition to your typical your transaction and the process related, can we look at the outside view in terms of what are the greatest risk which my organization is running, and for that my internal auditor has to be advised. That's one thing is been expected. And again, there's a slight area which is happening in terms of decision governance. When we say decision governance, more we look on the process controls and the technologies. That's where we look within the three domain. But ultimately, in terms of my decision makers, how my decision governance trees looks like, so that within my process technology and the controls which is around that, how this decision governance is stitched together. That's most important level of degree they're looking us, so that we never miss out anything. There's not appropriate decision as or oversight is happening. That's one important aspect. And the other one is on the behaviorals. There's a lot of behavioral audit has been happening, because important decision makers has go through the behavioral audit to understand that what are the good or worst situation, how that behavior of that individual will have adverse into the decision making capability or capacity. And that's where that they're looking us to do an assurance around the behavioral audit. And other things is on your change risk and digital technology, which is a common. And the next is on if we look on the advice piece in terms of that's important, Because if you look at the advice piece more on how I can elevate my 3 lines of defense, how I can look my assurance strategy, assurance program within the organizations is working well, because there are too many assurance activities that's happening, which there has been overlap, but there's also some situation where it does not have enough assurance happening. So how we can give a kind of overall assurance strategy as an internal audit, give me a kind of advice around it. And that's an important area which has been evolving. And the next is more in terms of how my external or leading practices look. That's where I need an internal auditor to advise more. And that's important area where internal audit has to think in terms of your current sector, or the situation of the business. What is my leading or emerging practices of my the competitions, which can be helpful to your the business or the stakeholders. And next is on the anticipate, which is where there's a forward looking in terms of what are the risks coming around. This generally is a dynamic or continuous risk assessment, and what are the typical potential risk or threat to my business. That's where I need some anticipation kind of a role by the internal auditors. And the last is on the accelerate. We all talk about the process, technology, everything. There's also we talk about important aspect on the people side, where how much I have been invested in terms of organizational learning, because a lot of changes is happening on the business landscape, and how my people is aware, or ready to change those changes or the transformations. And that's most important. Those are the people who's going to accelerate that entire force, and that's what where we focusing on accelerator. So this is a quick framework in terms of how it looks in terms of your purpose driven or digitally powered kind of a framework which will help them. So on top of it, there's a core operating system where you have a position and the organization. When you say position organization, in terms of how my organization or the position of organization looks like, whether there any changes needs to be done, and process technology and people as a default, that's never get compromised in the overall scheme. And this is the new framework which has been helpful by the lot of people in the current market generations world. Uh, I'm just more. So important topic where we are expecting in terms of typically what we are going to do a technology changes in the way we're going to do an interlog, right? So if you look, this is a quick summary in terms of if we take our typical life cycle of internal audit, it starts with your risk assessment. There'll be an audit planning and design effectiveness, or your fieldwork or operating effectiveness, and report issuance and the closure. And similarly, your action taken or report tracking. Right? This is where a key milestones of any internal audit life cycle. Right? Given this all stages or milestone, there's a four techniques or the technology we spoke about earlier. One is data analytics or the dashboard, which is very common, very many of them are aware. And next is robotics process automation, SAPI, which is also everyone is aware. And NLP, NLG, which is also quite popular in terms of the structure and unstructured data conversions, which is going to help us. Gen I am not going to pick up because that's a separate topic in terms of a lot of generative AI has been used. Keeping a light on around it within the risk assessment in legacy or traditionally, we will do a kind of risk assessment on an annual basis, where we will pick up your quantitative or qualitative information and try to do an KRI, key risk indicator. And based on that, we will evaluate the respective process or sub process, and to understand what is my risk profile. So based on this, if I'm going to do a collectively for the entire organization level, I'm going to do some scoring. Based on scoring, I'm going to evaluate what are the high risk processes, medium risk process, and low risk process. And this will help me to plan in my internal audit in terms of when I should do an internal audit within the year, or half-yearly basis, quarterly basis, next. That's our legacy risk assessment process and how the purpose of the risk assessment. And if you want to adapt in terms of using the technology on that entire the legacy process, right? One, of course, you've been hearing about continuous risk assessment or dynamic risk assessment. These are the market-driven term has been used. So many players have started adopting that. So how we can use technologies? One, you can use your data analytics. Second, you can use your robotics process automation. And third is more in terms of NLP, which is your converting your unstructured data into structured data. with this three technology, how the outcome or the outlook of that the risk assessment or dynamic or continuous risk assessment looks like, taking your quantitative information, which is directly access to your data set at the back of your SQL, where we'll pull out the entire information, assuming it's been available. To the extent of available data sets or the structured data, the analytics will be helpful to use and try to put all your KRIs as an algorithm or the script to try to convert in terms of continuous basis whenever the transaction hit, or for example, there's any notices is come where there's any penalties coming. That's one of my KRI, which I'll use it for the another quantitative information, which I'll keep on running on my RPA. Whenever the notices come, it will immediately convert it into my engine, and that engine will show me a trigger in terms of there is a KRI, which is a risk indicator. Based on that, it continuously change in my risk profiling and the risk scoring. Whereas typically our existing mechanism is more of annual basis. By the end of the impact has happened, we may not know the real score of that. What is that the risk of that profile or the process, right? But the helpful of this continuous or the dynamic risk assessment will help me to real time basis. I can know that what is the real risk position of that particular process, whether it's high, medium, low. It keep on change. Based on my profile changes, I should immediately pick up in my mental audit rather than doing a year-end exercise and pick up the impact, and based on that, I do some damage controls. So there's a big change. This dynamic and continuous risk assessment kind of a model using this technology where help me to convert it into the real-time risk monitor. And based on that, I'm going to do a dual kind of a internal audit deeper on it. This is happening on the risk assessment side. If your organization adopting risk assessment methodology, if its second stage is more in terms of audit planning. So in audit planning right now, there is a traditional way where they pick up a balance sheet P&L, try to do some risk scoring around it, and try to see what is my EBITDA, what is my percentage heavily going on there. And based on that, they determine the life cycles of internal audit plan. Typically, your business cycle, your order to cash, purchase to pay, HR payroll, based on your income and the spend. That's where we right now determine the audit plan for which we need to do an audit, which areas. That's one way of looking. And second, they do a kind of a lighter risk assessment, doing a risk workshop and understanding what are the pain points from the stakeholders and try to determine into the objective into areas into your audit plan. That's also another way of looking in terms of how they do an internal audit planning. So how technology going to help this? Again, similar to your risk assessment, the extended version, which we're going to get unstructured data using your survey notes. Survey notes is nothing about, they're going to do an AI kind of a survey. All the stakeholder get the keywords from them. And also they'll do a kind of all your notices. For example, we talk about regulatory fine or regulatory changes, and that's all unstructured data because nothing to coming in a structured form. It coming in a PDF, it coming in Word, it can be in minutes of a meeting, anything. So by running all my unstructured data using my RP and NLP, that engine will help you to scan and try to pick up all the keywords, and that give me a kind of a dashboard in terms of what are the key trend is coming out of this with using your past data or past information. And also there's an outside view in terms of your markets, social media analytics, and that's also give me in terms of what is the damages happening to the brand. With help of collectively of this information, I'll get to know the key areas or keywords which will translate into audit planning. That's the scientific or kind of a leading technology has been used. And this is also comes with the planning saying that, okay, there are 10 or 15 areas we're going to focus, or they're going to talk similarly customer service journey, because my customer feedback in social media show me in social media analytics, there's a lot of bad reviews about my products and services. And this is a trigger for me in outcome of my social media analytics and show me saying that, okay, my customer service journey has to be picked up as an audit area. And that's the way we're going to look in the audit planning also. That's a typical example will be helpful. And next stage is also there's a design effectiveness, or basically a walkthrough, a process, a design perspective we will look, right? So when we look on this area, which is typically your SOPs and the policy documents and the narratives which is available, there's a leading technology using of your cognitive and your analyticals and RPS put together. There's a lot of tools has been developed so far, which will able to scan your SOPs and pick up the risk statements and the control statements or the control points and that will help you to convert it into a typical RCM. Even your LLM model and GenAI started using to develop an RCM or risk and control matrices, which is GenAI. If you go to the NLP and NLG kind of technology, it will able to pick up the risk statement, what went wrong or what the typical risk statement, and what are my controls look from my SOPs and my policy document. And there's a survey results also will be conducted where there'll be some kind of question will be rolled out all the process owners on the kind of various stakeholders, and with the kind of a questions they'll try to note what kind of level of controls is available. With the put together of a survey, SOP and policy, you collectively that engine going to pick up that risk and controls library, and that is where we're going to pick up as a kind of a summary. With that, we're going to do a risk assessment in terms of a design effectiveness, right? So this is one of the leading technology. They called as someone who called as a process-oriented tools or kind of a process mining, and that's where you can heard a lot of leading market tools has been there. Next is on your fieldwork or operating effectiveness, some similar lines where you're going to pick up a samples and you're going to do a testing. And what is the leading technology or solutions available in the market is more continuous monitoring. I think most of them are aware of continuous monitoring, which is typically if you have say an inventory of 200 controls, all your control statements are going to be converted into a real-time monitoring algorithms, which is helping the CCM kind of a solution, which again a combination of core technology which we spoke about, your analytical, RPA, NLP, and NLG. With a combination of this, where they're going to architect a solution within your ERP connected with your ERP and the database, where they're going to pick up all that leading points in terms of all controls will be converted into a continuous monitoring data solution. Whenever there's an exception is coming, a real-time flash is going to the business, so that you does not go into an audit at end of the year or after 1 year and going to spend additional 2 or 3 months to do an audit and come back with solution. This kind of a solution is going to be happen on a real-time basis. That's where we call it as a continuous control monitoring or continuous monitoring kind of a market word has been available. And next important to the important stage where the reports, right? When we talk about reports, because that's where almost most of the time of all internal audit, while they are good at the field work or good at the execution extra, while that most of the time taken on the report finalization and closing, right? And that's where all internal auditors is spent their entire time, more time than the field work time. So what kind of technologies or leading practices can be useful is one, there is a kind of an NLP or NLG, but largely there is an NLG is being used because all your exceptions from your continuous monitorings will be converted into a report with your RPA and with NLP or NLG and the kind of a technology. How it going to pick up is there's a connected algorithm with your SOPs. So to give a process background in your report, and there's an exceptions is coming from your continuous control monitoring engine, which gives me the clear exceptions with the indication of how many instances this got failed, what's an impact statement, etc. And that's the third. And the third item where there's an automatic report generated with the background of the process, as typically an internal auditor has an overview. And against that criteria or conditions, what are the exceptions is there? For that, what is the source of information or the data we looked at, and how the exceptions looks like? So almost 70% of information is being translated as in a Word document or PPT. What internal has to do is try to fine tune it and make it as a final report. So the 70% of the time is the engine is going to help them. Only the 30% of fine tuning happening. So that's where the leading practice is happening on the reporting side also. Next is on the ATR, which is largely your issue tracking ongoing basis. And this is again a typical dashboarding. Largely your data analytics and dashboard is helpful. So in terms of how many is closed, how many opened, and with help of extended version of continuous monitoring, where the issue tracking is also being happening after the remediation. So this is the quick IA life cycle, how your typical technology and our methodology works hand in hand, and what is the outcome is coming around. Yeah, Sham, just move on to next. So we spoke about the leading practices or in when we spoke about how that technology works in our IA life cycle. but I'll get some more detailing which help you for one of a few cases. For example, continuous integrated risk assessment. Some people call as dynamic risk assessment. Some people call as continuous risk assessment, which is very simple using your key risk indicator as a base, using your quantitative and qualitative information with help of your structured data and unstructured data. Unstructured data, nothing about your typically your into or pulse survey or your text mining kind of a solution or cognitive sensing, which use as a basis to get this information from your unstructured data. All your leading points or keywords has been picked up. Structured data, which is very simple, using an analytical engine where we will get a complete mining of your transaction database using SQL, get a complete outliers. And with that, you're going to pick up a real-time algorithm to monitor how it's working in terms of risk assessment, etc. Right? That's where it looks like. And next is the continuous risk monitoring is one of our leading practices on the market is happening, which is again largely the use in the financial service industry where they keep on monitoring in terms of typically your core banking kind of a solution where they're going to pick up all your algorithms, all the script in terms of what are against my regulations requirement, they're going to convert it as continuous risk monitoring, which will help me that what's the risk profile of the process. Based on that, what are the exceptions being triggered. And this is something which makes us a dashboard to that your banking internal audit team head or inspection team, which will have a complete visibility in terms of where is my risk meter is going around, where should focus more, where should do an immediate actions to do a course correction in the internal audit plan. And the another one is this process oriented, which is a process mining kind of a tool, a process tool. This tool and technology, what's happening, which we spoke about, it will convert it into SOPs and policy keywords into or RCM or typical RCM risk and control. So that's what this will help us to do. Basically, it converts into all your large data of your SOPs and try to pick up all the key risk, what went wrong kind of a mechanism, and also look your review mechanism and the controls in place. And those are the keywords. But precursor here is more important. Your SOPs and policies should be updated. Otherwise, this tool will not able to help you to get the real information in terms of for your risk and control. Otherwise, it's going to be a false positive. And this is one thing which has happened in the process oriented kind of a tool. Next, just one. So we spoke about continuous monitoring. So when we say continuous control monitoring or continuous monitoring, so are all similar lines. Again, it converts all your risk and controls into a kind of continuous monitoring happening in your ERP or your technology or application, which is used in your clients or the businesses. And the most important is this kind of a solution will be very important because the entire architecture works with a lot of investment. Unless your RCM and the availability of your business structure or unstructured and structured data to be very clearly explained to your business, then the solution works very well. And only important thing is there's a real-time oversight required on this kind of a continuous control monitoring solution so that it shows us a real exceptions or the false positive for your business to pick it up. A typical example, your three-way matches, SOD conflicts is there. SOD conflicts is again, it's automated to US solutions. So change management is happening. The entire change management, as and when something changes in the process, and you should make a changes in your entire continuous control monitoring solution also. And next is on the process scanning. Process scanning is typically it help you to develop a flow chart based on your SOP, and that's something which is the kind of a solutions or the market offering is already available in the current world. Wherever we going to develop a kind of process nodes, from the process node, there should be clearly who's going to do what. It should be there, and with the help of that, it's going to translate it into a flow chart with the swim lanes, and it exactly tell the flow of transactions or the flow of event so that anyone can understand clearly in terms of what's happening. And that solution's already up and running, and so many people have started using this kind of a process scanning also. Move on. So I'll talk about some of the use cases which will help you to understand how that the solutioning happening and what are the benefits and outcomes is being come. For example, typically a revenue assurance. And if we take an example of any financial institutions, because largely they have a multiple regulations and expectations, and the business is more serious, and there's a lot of money involved in. If you want to give us some kind of a revenue assurance in terms of how my interest is being computed, what are the logics is set in the master level and the table level, and how it's interlinked with my data sets and how it's translated into impacting my GLs or P&L, etc. Right? This is the typical architecture. So if you want to give an assurance in terms of okay, my engine interest computation logic is working fine, and it shows me appropriate kind of an computation, and it goes talks with the respective GL codes, and it's translated my revenue is got recognized properly, right? If that's a typical problem statement anyone is coming, how it works is with the usage of your data analytics and automated control tool kind of a text thing, which will able to help us to identify what is the exceptions at the logic level, whether it shows a correct computation logic with all the possible scenarios, so that any given scenario that logic does not get failed or it does not park separately, because there's a lot of issues around the logic in line with the blueprint while they're developing this tool or solution or changes towards a tool. Second is in terms of that's the first level of assurance. Second is at the transaction level, because at the logic level, at the master level, we know this is fine. But apply all the scenarios, there's a second level of comfort is required, where they apply this logic by redefining in terms of a simple scenario, business scenario, convert it into a script and algorithm, which able to run the complete data set at the SQL or database source level, and try to see that whatever my front end information is giving in terms of a GL, my backend data of reperforming this is as the same results, and what's the difference. And this is gives a lot of comfort, and this is where they use the technology of analyticals, and it also use the technology of your NLP and NLG. With the cognitive technology, this kind of revenue insurance has been one of a successful story which we saw. It helped a lot of clients. It's happened over the 3 or 4 weeks times. If this kind of exercise to be done, it needs a huge manpower, and it requires a lot of investment to get that level of comfort. That's one of the useful use cases which are helpful. Next is one of our useful use cases are audit process efficiency. When I say audit process efficiency, is typically generating a report, because that's where there's a lot of reports has been generated. If you look, if there's an organization has so many offices and so many processes, and they have a complex business models, and getting into a report, almost a 40-50 report, and trying to understand as a audit executive level at the board level in terms of what are the exceptions, so much of mammoth task is required, right? So from your testing sheet, or your typically your test sheet is being maintained, from the test sheets where you pick up all the exceptions, and from the exceptions, it will go back with your process notes SOP. It try to understand the similar line sense of what is my background of the process. And with that background note, it will shares that my standard English or language has been curated. And with the help of that, it translate into another kind of issues and exceptions under standardized manner. That is linked with your process taxonomy also. If you want to look at the process level location wise issue, this kind of a solution was helpful for them, that particular audit unit, because for them this is most complex, where 50-60 report of consolidation with presenting to audit committee in ATR and going with all the work papers, it's a lot of human effort has been put across. And this technology they use mostly with your NLP and NLG with RPA. And this is where they helpful to convert, because this analytical does not going to help, because this is largely cognitive technology is helpful for them to generate a report. And third useful use cases is compliance assurance. If you want to read compliance assurance, for example, a lot of regulations has been coming every day. And classic cases, your GDPR, because they have a lot of clauses in terms of data processing clause, sub-processing clause, data security clause, and all has to be incorporated in your contracts. And if you want to relook whether I have complied in my all contracts, considering the size of 3,000, 4,000 contracts has been used by that the particular organization or your client, and it's very difficult for someone to go read all the classes. So here there's a usage of technology will help them to convert, because understanding the GDPR expectation and the required clauses, and with the help of your cognitive technology, which you're able to read all the contracts at the one go. And there's a Gen AI. Gen AI is also going to helpful. But if you go back to the cognitive, which reads all the contract and try to give an exception which contract does not follow the respective clauses. So this level of detailing and the exceptions, which is helpful, that's another useful case study, which is helpful a lot of people on this. Next, just go back, Sham, next one. Yeah. So next is on the expense assurance. So typically, if you look, there is a lot of vendor audits or vendor recovery audits which may happen, right? If you look our current Indian context, a lot of service organization, a lot of BPO organizations are operating out of in India. If you look them, and they all do services with many countries, right? And they do a lot of service and product development, so software development also, and they typically works on your kind of co-sourcing model. So that's a business model has been emerging, right? Looking at that, if someone like they wants to understand the expenses assurance, right? They try to understand what kind of if you get a simple example of timesheet, because there are 1,500 people or 2,000 people working for some projects in US, and that particular client wants to know what's the timesheet they spend on this project, and what is the invoices being raised by that the service provider, and what are the SOWs being executed. If you take that's a classic simple example, and someone has to do this kind of a complete assurance, it's need almost a huge time and the resources to be deployed. So how this revenue or expenses assurance works is very simple of taking your timesheet, all your PDFs or your structured data that will translate in terms of employees, what's the time has been booked, if it's approaching. And also they scan that invoices and SOWs to pick up all the keywords in terms of those employees or the resources, which help of your RPAs and NLP, NLG, which translate into unstructured data of a PDFs to into structured data and compare with the data analytics. It shows clearly exceptions. What is my SOW rate? What's the time is booked? And what are the exceptions? So this is called expense assurance, where it shows exactly whether my service provider charge excess or short, etc. Everything can be done, and this kind of a solution has been happening. And next is on your procurement assurance, which is typically or network analytics to understand the relationship between the employees and the vendors, and what's the outside market database kind of information available, try to sense it out. So they have some kind of an assurance around that there's any relationship or there's any intention behind that. So that's also the greater benefit is happening, which is again your social media analytics and outside network analytics has been happening. The next, similarly on a compliance assurance, there's an in anti-money laundering cases where if you want to see the customer risk rating, what is the exactly looking, and with the sanctions and non-sanctions and etc. There's a lot of regulatory bodies or governing bodies keep on publishing, but we have a proper channel to know what are the sanctioned and non-sanctioned, which is have a connected with your compliance assurance. And this is also one of our solutions which has been popular on it. Next, Sham, this. So to come up with in terms of what are the tools over here, right? Because what we saw so far is more of a solution of the best practices or market practices, how it works and etc. But there's enough tools in the market where are many of our internal professionals to know how to pick up the tools and etc. But it's again very subjective, or they have to pick up the right one based on the purpose, the length and breadth of a deeper organization, and the scale which they operate. Based on that works. But if you put across a summary in terms of database, you know that SQL is a database, or Microsoft Azure as well, Oracle, they have a larger database which runs your database of underlying data go and sit there. And data sources, you have API, your Twitter API and other APIs which will pull the informations which is helpful for you to connect to or integrate anywhere, right? And when you look the scripting based or engines or languages, largely or R, Python is used in your Gen AI, which they write able to code it exactly how it works, has to be the system or the tool has to be behaved. And there are a lot of script-based languages available in the market, but pick up which is suitable, which is available to them. And then most important is your workflow-based engine or your data analytical engine, where There's a Data IQ, Altrix, 9, which is available in the market, which someone can want to use it. That the basic is your ACL if you're elementary level, but if you want more complex kind of algorithms or script as within Altrix, 9 and Data IQ has been available. And the most important is your dashboarding, because that's where it will going to show the outcome or the results in terms of exceptions or the slice and dice information, how it looks like. So if you look at the dashboard, the famous one is Power BI because it has a Microsoft platform. It's easy to pick it up. And similarly, there are Tableau and ClickView or ClickSense. A lot of these has been available as a dashboarding also. And the last is on your automation and specialized system, which is helpful with your cognitive technology, your Salinas and other ones which is available. Just move on. So this is where the output looks like, or the dashboard looks like. If you want to look the risk dashboard or the continuous control dashboard in terms of what is the risk meter or the control meter, how many controls is pass or fail, how many control is being complied, how many obligations to cut. There are so many ways where the output or the dashboard looks like, but also there's a control dashboard in terms of it shows that geography wise as well as your process wise, your process taxonomy, and also the improvement opportunity. So everything has been translated as a dashboard, and it shows the executive level or a chief audit executive level to understand, to take a decision on a real-time basis. And that's kind of the outcome is most important for the IA professionals, because entire the scheme of world where your technology people help, but the outcome of that is what they're going to make a decision, or they might to change that audit plan or the deeper of audit, etc. All this outcome of the dashboard. This is a sample, but it's more customized one. People can customize according to the requirement. Yeah, Shamjas. So this all about digitalization and internal audit. Hope this will be useful, but it has a lot of terminologies and the methods has been used to convert it and usage of it. And happy to share more information if you're looking out. So that's all about. Thanks to ICA, the Board of Internal Audit and the Management Accounting, because this is most important topic and it'll helpful for many professionals to think something different and try to start elevating the internal audit the way we do. Yeah. Yeah, Gayatri.
Thank you so much, sir. And let me tell you that your presentation was very comprehensive and amazing. Sir, if you allow, can we take up the queries? We have received a few queries.
Yep.
So, one of the member, Ashwin, is asking how to use, in what ways can AI be effectively integrated into human decision-making processes to enhance collaboration and decision support?
See, AI now, for example, there are two AIs, right? One is descriptive AI, which will show us in terms of analyzing the past data, and that was helping us to make a decision. For example, human decisions with usage of AI, I can read a large volume of data and get that insights in terms of what typically went wrong in our world. If I look from the internal audit angle, that's what we look. Second is your Gen AI, which will help you to create a new content. When I say new content, it for our case, for example, human decision is almost it's been done in the GNAI. For example, we talk about your risk and control matrix, where we prepare as an internal professional of the outcome of flow. Now this GNAI is going to help us to develop on our own with usage of your SOP policy, reading all your LLM, large language on using of that is going to read everything. With that help of that, the output is come, but the human decision still is going to be with us, because these tools and technologies being developed and it's been testing at multiple scenarios and business complexity. But nevertheless, it's never going to compromise or replace the way the human decision making is processed. But the only one is going to help us to the extent to save time, and that's all. But it's going to be designed by us. That's the human decision making never is going to change.
Yeah, I hope that answers his query. And one more question that is similar to the one recently asked. Can you elaborate on the collaborative workflow between auditors and AI tools, ensuring a synergistic approach to internal audit processes?
Okay. See, collaborative tools which we are, there is enough tools and digital assessment created by each individuals, each organization, etc. Whatever we talk, all this, the base platform of using this technology, NLP, NLG, AI, ML, and Gen AI, all this are all base. Underlying, there is a lot of tools which is available. Open source tools is there, already recognized tools by Google and Microsoft has already launched their open Gen AI kind of a tools is they already been rolled out, right? So that each individual can start playing or developing a kind of a product or asset based on that. So the tool, collaborative tools is open, but the caveat here is whether our professional people can able to write it. We need to take help of a technology specialist. The only thing is we're going to be an architecture or orchestra to going to develop the entire design. But the only thing is they have to see that the privacy, confidentiality, and again the user friendliness and the scalability. There are a lot more dimension towards it if you're going to pick up the collaborative tools using to our world. The only thing is we should think about the business angle and the employee angle and our scalability angle. And again, without compromising the regulation. And based on this, there's a tools, they have to pick up right tools for the collaborations.
Thank you, sir. So we don't have any other queries. So all the queries are answered. So we are thankful to you to have you amongst us. You have briefed us about the recap of internal audit journey, new era of internal audit framework, 4 A's, where we can leverage technologies in IA life cycle. You've told us about internal audit analytics and automation use cases, and also briefed us about tools enabling AI. And this was the query from a lot of audiences. They were keen to know about the tools, but you have very well answered it during your session itself. The presentation has a comprehensive coverage, and I thank you on the behalf of the board for such an enlightening session. Hope our audience must have a lot of key takeaways from the session today. Thank you, sir, for the time, and thanks to all the audience.
Thank you.
Thanks to all the audience for being with us.